Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning if you're hanging out on the west of the planet. So today we're going to be talking about a few workflow things. I'll be honest, it's a bit of a mishmash of a live stream, excuse me, with not much of a red thread through it, except for the I guess task of improving your workflow. So I've tried to pick out a few things which I guess in the past few months, I've assumed that everyone knows about, but in reality, it's not necessarily the case. So some older legacy features, which I think are great and you should know about, and also some newer stuff that we can dig into as well. For those of you who are on YouTube or LinkedIn, hi to you guys, so thanks for joining. And for those of you who are in our live streaming room, then hello to you guys as well. If you want to ask a question on YouTube, you can, or LinkedIn, and then I'll see those as they come through. And equally, if you want to ask a question in our live streaming room, then please do so on the Q&A tab. And this way it keeps it separated for Helen, who's also hanging out as usual to answer as many questions as possible. And if you want to hide the chat, you can do so, and that will give you a bit more space on screen as well. All right, let's dive straight into it. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about with the help of this, a memory card, which won't be in focus if you can see that, is something called Cull Mode, which has been around, I think, from at least version 23. I might have got that wrong, maybe earlier, which is a great way to cull images if they're on a memory card or even if they're on your computer. Now, there's a subtle difference between using it on already imported images compared to doing it on a memory card, so we're going to do that first. So I'm going to put this card in my reader on the desk, and that should open up in Capture One. But first of all, I've just faked that these were shot on a camera. I'm just going to choose a different selection of images for a second, and we're going to turn this off, and then we're going to talk about exactly what Cull Mode does. So Cull Mode is, if you like, a part of the importer, which you can see on screen, and also a specific mode that we can enter once we've imported the images. But the kind of operations that you're going to see now are based on working off the memory card. And the reason why you might want to work off the memory card is if you've shot a large quantity of images, wedding, sports event, corporate event, or something like that, and you don't want to import everything, but you only want to import a few, whether that's for the time being or in totality that you're one of these brave people who never imports anything off a memory card, then you can use Cull Mode for that. So first of all, let me just open this guy. First of all, we can see down here we've got something over on the left here called Enable Groups. Now I've got a couple of different examples. This one is probably an easy task for the AI, so this is an AI driven operation. So if I turn on Enable Groups, Capture One will look to group similar sets of images. So if I have the similarity slider at 0, we're going to end up with one massive group, because having the slider set very low means we're asking Capture One to be not especially discerning between the contents of each image. So all it's doing is saying, well, all your images look the same, because we've set the bias super low. As we increase this, you're going to start to see groups appearing, and we can probably do a pretty good job of actually these groups being divided into the people that we shot. So if you want to do that, it's pretty simple. So if I go too far, then it will probably start chopping up the individuals into smaller groups. So I want to adjust this till we get, this grouping pretty sweet like so. So that's part one. Where it really comes into its own is with this button up here called the viewer. So if we turn this on, what it's going to do is show me my group of images and how many images are inside. So there's 34 in this set. It's going to show me the contents of that set of images along the bottom here on the film strip. And it's going to show me either the eye or the face or whatever else I want to choose based on what I set over here in face focus settings. So now using my cursor keys, so this is all cursor key driven and keyboard driven, you don't need to use your mouse, so it's nice and speedy. I can then use my left and right cursor keys to go through the images and decide which ones I want to import with a simple tap of the spacebar, like so. And now you see it puts a check mark next to the image. So all you're doing is using your cursor keys to go through and then tapping the spacebar when you want to select an image to be ready for importing. When you're clear with that set, I can go down arrow. So let's just put that back on again. So I can go up arrow for the first set, down arrow for the next set, down arrow for the next set, and so forth. And then using my cursor keys like so to go through, and then spacebar tap to check the ones that I want. Now this is super quick, so you'll see I can whiz through really fast, no problem at all. If I hold down my cursor keys like so, then you can see that blast through. Depending on your camera, and I say depending on your camera because what we're looking at here is the preview file that the camera created when you took the image. So this is already written into the raw file. Depending on your camera, some do them quite nice and big, some are a little less chunky, but this one on a ARW, so this is a Sony, you can see I can double click and actually check sharpness quite nicely as well, but not forgetting I've also got the eye view up here as well. This will also replicate. If we had a group shot, we would have an eye for every person in that group as well. Or if you want to change it for expressions to check, excuse me, who's smiling, who's not smiling, who's got their eyes shut, then you can limit it to face. The reason why, again, it's so rapid is because we're already using that built-in JPEG into the raw file, so we don't have to create any preview or anything like that to display it. We can just bring it up straight away. So very quickly you can move through all these images, tapping the spacebar with what you want to import, and job's done. So that's Cull Mode working off the import card. A couple of other things that you might want to think about to improve your workflow is also including metadata. So there's two ways you can do that. You can just punch in your copyright and description here, or under adjustments, which is maybe a weird place to find it. If you go into custom presets, I've made a metadata preset. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then we can apply that to all the images as we import. So by adding your metadata, and this can be things like your name, address, copyright information, contact details, and so on, it does that at the time of import, saves you a job later on. Now, as I said, you might well want to go back and import everything. I'm paranoid, I always import everything, never delete anything either. But if you're in that situation where you want to get the, the very best images out from the memory card quickly, Cull Mode is a really sort of speedy way to do it. So that's built into the importer. I'm not going to import these. Oh, actually, before we go out of this, as I said, this is probably a pretty easy task for the AI. If we choose a different collection of images, which are more varied, you'll see it also does a pretty nice job. So at 0, we're going to end up with one big group. As I drag this slider to the right, we can pretty much see, nope, we need to go a bit more. So now we can see we've got this group here, this group of 3 there, this one of 11. So even though they're varying, they're similar enough to be in the same group. We could argue this group of 13, there's too much variation. So I need to bump this up a bit, maybe a bit more, and yep, there we go. So that's nailed it in terms of the grouping. And that's a more complex, variant subject as well. So if we go back into the viewer, we can now see we've got the 2 eyes up here, as there's 2 people, and same goes for if I press my, press my down arrow key, then you can see like so, we're looking at the faces, just the one there, 2 faces there, and so on. And nice and quick as well, there's no delay in really picking up the faces. Obviously, if they're too small in this respect, like those images, it's not going to detect it. But even here, relatively small, we can actually see the faces like so. So that gives me an indication pretty quickly without having to zoom in, you know, how the face and expressions are looking at and so on and so forth. So that's off the memory card. Maybe just check if anybody asked any questions with that. Let's see. What's the best way to improve speed for image visualization? So in Cull Mode, it's purely based on a couple of things. One, several things. One, how fast the memory card is, because we're reading off the memory card. Two, how fast your reader is, because we're reading off that. And then three, also, what was three? Also, the size of the built-in preview as well. So in Cull Mode, that's what's influencing it. In normal Capture One mode, there's a few things. So if we look at this, for example, under settings and where is it? Image. So preview size here, people make a fatal mistake of thinking if I make this really small, it's going to make Capture One faster. It will actually do the opposite. You want to be picking the recommended. Because if the preview size is too small when you're browsing pictures, Capture One will always have to recalculate from the raw data. So if you want to skip all the technical stuff, just go to recommended like so, and then that is the best way to optimize your browsing performance. Now Cull Mode has a subtle difference, so you'll see up here, or a subtle difference after you've imported the images. So there's a button up here on your toolbar. If it's not there, you can add it, or you can probably find it in one of the menus. Cull Images, yep, so it is right there, or Command U. Now notice these images have got adjustments on because our developer Ines here is in black and white. So we know we've got some adjustments going on. However, when we slip back into Cull Mode, notice that they're no longer reflecting those settings because we're always going to use the embedded preview in the file for maximum speed, essentially. So just be aware of that. So that's why you won't necessarily see those adjustments reflected, but what we've done here is optimize for speed. So that was all extremely boring to those of you who've used Cull Mode, but I hope there's some of you out there that certainly have not been aware of it or not used it, but it's a really super, great actual addition. There was a question earlier, what version of Capture One I'm using, 16.5.8. So .8 came out today. So those of you on Windows who've had a few issues with memory running out when you're exporting, that's a fix for that. And there's also been some fixes for Mac in that as well. Good question from Larry. Is there any significance between Cull modes of C1 and third-party apps? I think they all have their subtle differences. The benefit of doing it in Capture One is that you're using one application. Now, there are some other culling apps that will do some AI auto culling for you. This is not auto culling, it's auto grouping. So it depends, what's important to you. Is it vital that you have that auto culling, or are you happy to cull yourself but have the benefit of the groups and the speed? This one, I know we're working on it, but I can't give you a release date at this precise time, I'm afraid. I know there's quite a few complexities around that, but it is something we are working on. All right, I think that was it for questions. Yeah, and tethered capture, Paco, for performance, it's the same thing. Make sure you're optimizing your previews, and also you're optimizing your tether cable, because if you're using a crappy slow tether cable, then that's going to slow you down. And also the speed of your hard drive. Is it an SSD? Does it have a fast read-write speed? I would hope most of us are on SSDs now, but if you're on an old computer with a spinning hard drive, then of course that's going to slow it down as well. So camera speed, USB cable speed, computer speed, hard drive speed, that's all the things you can optimize. All right, so next I want to talk about a couple of things which have come up with questions over the past few months as well, is the difference between styles and match look, when you should use one, when you should use another, when one doesn't work and when one does, and how you can actually optimize them both together. So we've got a bunch of images here. I think, are they all reset? Oh, am I using the wrong keyboard shortcut set? Hang on a second. What am I on? No, I'm on that. That's weird. They must be reset then. Yes, they are. Sorry, I thought I had adjustments on there, but I don't. So styles versus match look. So for styles, I'd say the way to think about styles is that they give consistent adjustments. And if you want to think about match look in a slightly different way, it potentially gives you more consistent results. But there's a few caveats with that, and there's a way to make them work together really nicely. Now in this example scenario, we have a bunch of images that have been shot, and I can prove this, under the same lighting and conditions, and also pretty much within the space of 10 seconds. So if you look at image number 1, it was shot at 45 seconds past 13:19, and then this one was shot at 55 seconds. So we've got 10 seconds between here and here. The lighting obviously won't have changed that much, and of course it won't have really changed at all within that space. So if you look at all these images, you can see they're pretty consistent. You might see that the shutter speed changes a little bit on 1 or 2 images, like so. So we've got 500 seconds of a difference, but in the image, like, it's pretty insignificant. So this is a great candidate for using a style, like so. So if we find a style, let's go. And I'm going to use one of our Beyond Film styles, and let's go for, let's have a look. That's probably a bit strong. So let's choose F200. Why not? So I'm going to lock that in on the first one, but styles, they're always, as I would say, a start point. So it's unlikely, as much as the style sellers or preset sellers will tell you, it's unlikely to be a one-click solution. So they're a great start point. It can dial in your favored look and so on, but it's unlikely to be, right, you know, my job's done editing and so on. So with this particular shot, I'm going to brighten it a little bit. I want to have it slightly bit warmer, maybe a bit more contrast, but now I'm happy, kind of thing. Oh, that wasn't the first shot in the series, doesn't matter. So now if we look at all the other pictures, I can very easily copy that and then paste that to everything else. So I'll take the one out which already had adjustments and say apply, like so. So now we've got nice consistent adjustments. And what I mean is that if I look at all the other pictures like there, all the adjustments are exactly the same. Now this works great because, oh, is my overhead camera having a freak out? Let me just turn that guy off for a second. It's a pity because I need that later. So I'm just going to turn that off and hope it fixes itself. Otherwise we got a problem. Let's bring that back because there's something I want to show you on the overhead camera, and if it's doing that, that's a bit worrying. So maybe it's overheating. Anyway, let's worry about that when the time comes. Okay, so now we've got consistent results and so forth. One little trick before we move on to match look is just to make sure you guys are aware of auto crop or AI crop, which you're going to have in Capture One Pro. Now in Capture One Studio, we've got some additional tools, but that does not negate you guys actually having to use AI crop features in Capture One Pro. So in Capture One Studio, we have some additional things. Capture One Pro, you've got some tools which are really useful. Now, what you're going to be looking for in Capture One Pro is a couple of buttons that look like this: Set as Reference and Apply Reference, which sit down here under the crop tool. So for example, if I go to 2x3 and crop Nathan nicely like so and set as reference, and then select all the other pictures and say apply, what it's going to do is auto crop but the goal of this tool is to keep Nathan in pretty much the same size and position as my reference image, this one. So now if I select all of them, like so, he looks pretty consistent, right? If I press C on my keyboard to bring up the crop tool, you can see that the crop is moving around a little bit. It's changing size slightly with the goal to keep him all consistent. So you can do that in Capture One Pro. It's not purely in a Capture One Studio feature. There is more features in Capture One Studio for setting up specific margins and so on. But this way, you can still use it in Capture One Pro. So if you haven't discovered that, it's a really good, handy feature if you're shooting people, but it also works on subjects as well. So if Capture One detects a face, it will kind of go to people mode, looking for faces. If there's no face detected, it will look for the subject in the image. Because as well as detecting, people structures, we'll also detect subjects. So just to find something that's completely non-people related, it's the same algorithm. So if I do a subject mask on this, it's going to pick up the aircraft. If I do background, it's going to pick up the sky, like so. So auto crop will work on, let's say you shot a bunch of handbags or something like that, then it's also going to work quite nicely too. So that was styles in terms of consistent adjustments. Again, using a style to apply to the first image, tweaking it, and then copying that across to everything else. Now that works great in this situation because we shot those images in a very tight space of time and the light didn't change. Now, if we go to something like this, let's make sure they're all reset and we do a different thing. So let's grab all the images once more and we do the same thing. Let's take one image. Let's take this one and we apply, what should we go for? Let's go for F401, make a little tweak. So I want this to be a bit brighter. So I've got my base adjustments in. Now if I do the same thing, copy up here, of course, and then apply to everything else. Doesn't work quite so well because these images obviously were shot over a longer period of time. The light is changing, the environment is changing. So applying a style in that respect doesn't cut it for us. So this is where the idea of match look comes in. But there's no reason why we can't use that in conjunction with a style that you like. So I'm going to reset everything again and let's go back to the first image and we do the same thing. We start with the style. So what did I say I wanted? F400, 1 or 2. Yeah, let's go for 1. Let's brighten that up a little bit and just pull my highlights down. And now, in the wrong tool tab. Whoa, let's undo that. It's better. Now we're going to drag my raw file with the adjustments I just made into the match look tool. And then I'm going to take the other pictures which have this variation and say apply like so. So now it's going to do a much better job of using the essence of that style, but taking into account the variations on the image. So we're going to, with the normalize function here, we're going to improve our exposure and white balance, and we're going to fix light and contrast and so on. But this time we're not having consistent adjustments because they're moving around. We're having consistent results, which is kind of what we want in both scenarios. But in this case, the styles don't work because of the variation of the image. So styles consistent adjustments, match look consistent results. No reason why you can't use the two together to get your same outcome, which is consistent imagery, which will hopefully have a minimal amount of editing to do compared to how they looked at the start. So this image was quite underexposed. So if we'd applied a style in the old days, we would have had to fix that, of course. Now we've accelerated our process greatly, which is good. Okay, let's see if we got any questions on that. I think we're good. Can you set a crop reference as a preset? Yes, you can, I believe. Let me just, one thing I can't check is because I'm running Studio, I can't remember if you can save the preset up here. So just check in the crop tool. You definitely can in Studio. You can save a custom preset. It might be a Studio only feature. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. Okay. Right. I think that was styles. I just want to check I didn't miss anything. So style brushes is what I want to talk about next. And what pictures shall we go back to this one? So let's pick a Nathan. Now style brushes, doesn't matter what kind of genre you're shooting, can be people, objects, pets, etc, etc. Style brushes are great for that. And style brushes are a really good way to accelerate kind of boring tasks and blast through a bunch of images quickly. So here under style brushes, if we look under here, light and contrast, let's say we want to do a quick bit of dodging and burning on all our images here. Now, before style brushes came along, and again, not many people seem to know about this because a question came up a little while back, can I just use style brushes to select? I thought, why would you want to use a style brush to select? You've got tons of selection tools here. Style brushes are to accelerate, 3 things at once. So if I go to this one, say we want to lighten, so I'm going to grab dodge and we open up our layers. Now, as soon as I start brushing on Nathan in a second, you're going to see a change. But as soon as I pick dodge, my cursor tool changed to the brush cursor tool up the top here. And as soon as I start to brush, a new layer is created. It sets up a bunch of parameters on the layer itself, and also sets up a bunch of parameters on the brush itself as well. So that accelerates a bunch of stuff in one click. So this particular brush has settings that align really nicely to whatever we've set on this layer, which is a little exposure boost and a little curve boost down here, all automatically. So if we do that again, but with burn, so let's grab burn for darken, come over onto my image, I can right click to change my brush if I want to. As soon as I start brushing, you see a layer is created, my brush is set up, and it applies those adjustments to the image like so. So I can now burn in there if I wish. Next image, right cursor key, dodge, brighten a little bit here, burn, darken a bit down here, and so forth. You get the idea. So that's a million times faster than making a layer, setting up some adjustments, tweaking the brush, so on and so forth. So if you weren't aware of style brushes, please take a look at them. It's not only for dodging and burning. We can add, contrast, brightness. We've got sharpening, which is adding detail, like sky enhancements, helping with red skin, all kinds of stuff. You can also make your own. The process for that is pretty simple. You just have to set up your layer and brush how you want it. And then right click, sorry, not right click here, just click and say save style brush. And then you can decide once you've done that, what elements you want in the brush itself. Do you want it to save the brush parameters? Do you want it to save the layer parameters, etc.? So do make your own. Whoops, nearly dropped my little microphone transmitter then. Do make your own if you wish, but you should find a lot of useful stuff there already. Okay, question from Sean. Is Cull Mode, AI Crop and Match Look the main 3 AI features? No, Cull Mode's been around for a while, Sean. I'm just mentioning it because I think it gets skipped quite a lot of the time, which is always the habit with older legacy features that you don't mention them anymore. But AI Crop is pretty recent, Match Look is pretty recent. We've also got people masking as well. So if I wanted to mask different elements of an image or a person like so, I can create a whole bunch of masks quite nicely. So there's the hair, there's the face, there's body skin, there's the pupils and so on, and of course do that on a batch. So that's 3 of the main pillars we've been talking about as well. Let me just check for questions here. Okay, that's good for now, I think. That was relatively quick on style brushes, but an important thing to point out, which we're going to pick up, is also shortcut keys. So if you want to shortcut key your style brushes, if you're using like dodge, burn regularly and so on and so forth, then you can do so. But in your keyboard shortcuts, edit keyboard shortcuts, down here under custom shortcuts, you've got your select style brush like so. And you can also add shortcuts to styles. You can also do open with and edit with commands as well. So don't forget that. Marco says, can you mask multiple persons separately? Yeah, if we had 2 people in the shot and I said face as an example, then it would mask both the people's faces. But we are looking in ways to divide that up, if you like, and with some other features coming as well to enhance that further. So right now, multiple people, if I said face, they would all get a face mask. You could delete it pretty quickly or erase it if you wanted to. But right now, that's the operation. But as I said, we're looking at ways to improve that. Okay, now the next part I want to talk about, which is going to be interesting because if my overhead camera is deciding to break, so I'm going to try and ungracefully turn it off and on again by unplugging this and plugging that back in again and seeing if it's died. Let's see. Fingers crossed. Woohoo! We're good. So the whole turning it off and on again thing, successful once more. So what I wanted to talk about next is this guy, which I'm going to bring out into the limelight. So this guy and actually this guy. So I've had this sitting on my desk for quite some time and I've long wanted to do a live stream around it, but there hasn't really been one where it kind of fits. And until now, as this is a bit of a, as I said at the start, a smorgasbord of various different tips, which I don't know how well that will go, but here we are. So if I just do this for a second. So what the Stream Deck is, are we in focus? I think we're in focus. Let's see, let's just double check. Yeah, it's pretty sharp. So what the Stream Deck is a rather healthily priced device, which has a load of buttons on it, little LCD displays which you can program as well, and it's a way of binding actions which you would normally do on a keyboard to a pad like this. Now you might be thinking, what's the point of having this when you've got a keyboard, which is actually a great argument. The main difference here, I would say, is the fact that it's dynamic and it can do a bunch of different stuff, and you have the ability to customize the keys. Because for me, I wouldn't be able to remember if I had shortcut keys for various actions on here, I wouldn't be able to remember what they do. Now, what this initially was designed for was for what we're doing now, which is live streaming. So if I press this button, then it changes to this view. If I press this, it brings up the overhead. If I press this, then it switches my scene like so. So I very quickly know which button does what by the icon and so forth. So that's why it's advanced over a keyboard. How does it become useful for Capture One? Well, let's bring up, hang on, I'm so used to it being in front of the desk, I'm all confused now. Let's bring up this configuration panel, which should help you a little bit. So it has a really nice graphical UI. Right now it's set up for the live streaming software, so no good for Capture One. What we can do though is instantly switch to my Capture One profile, and this brings up a bunch of other stuff. All Capture One commands. Some which, yes, are fairly easily replicated by a keyboard, some which kind of string a few things together. But the main benefit is that you don't have to have the tools open that are related to some of this functionality. And as we look at a couple of them, that will make a bit more sense. The way this works is you download a plugin, and I can show you where the plugin is and a bit more about this product in a second. But the plugin here for Capture One involves you just simply picking a function and then dragging that over to the key that you want to have. So now I dragged set ISO, so I could say, for example, I would like to reset my ISO or increment or decrement it like so. Now I don't have a camera attached, so that was a bad example, David. But for example, rotate image, like so. If I drop that there, this then becomes rotate, and I can say I want to have counterclockwise like so. So now if I just move this out of the way a second and I press this, then, oh, that was strange because it should have allowed me to do that anyway. Let's say allow. I might have to restart Capture One. Oh, there we go. So now when I tap this button, it rotates my image. Something fairly simple like that. Now where it gets a bit more interesting, of course, if you have clients that you're working with, everybody understands buttons with colors on them. So if I wanted to, example, hit this with a green tag, I can do so. And you can see just down here underneath with the image that we have open, green, yellow, red, like so. I can put this back to green. If I just go to another image and tag that one green. What's also nice is this functionality, if I bring this back, is filter to green, like so. So this would involve going to my library tool, finding the filters tool panel and clicking on the filter like so, or using a shortcut key. But again, if you struggle to remember shortcut keys, then it's a lot easier to hit this button here. So if I tap this one, filter to green, then you can see down here on the right hand side, I've filtered to all of my green images. If I tap it once more, then it will take that toggle off like so. There's some other nice things like turning live view on and off, a whole bunch of stuff. Now these three down here, if you're a Capture One Studio user, these accelerate the use of client viewers. If you don't know what a client viewer is, it's essentially just another window that we can open with a slightly different Capture One interface, which could be good for just viewing the last capture, viewing a selected bunch of images, and so on. So if I hit on B here, this will pin the current image that I've got open to a secondary window. So this can now be displayed on a different monitor, and then as I scroll through these other pictures like so, it keeps that one locked. And then we've also got a last capture. So if you're shooting the studio and you want a monitor close to you, then that will show you the last capture. And then finally, we've got a pin. Oh, sorry, we did pin. I'll say A. We've got a selected one, which will just show the currently selected image in your viewer as well. So these are a little bit tricky to quickly set up without the use of a really nice shortcut like this. Now they're not cheap, I will say, because they're not cheap. So it has to be, if you like, a concerted reason why you think you would use it. Oh, the last thing I didn't mention is that you can also set up shortcut keys. So you've got dodge and burn here as an example. So if I tap dodge, my dodge button, like so, it takes me straight to dodge, and then I can start working. Or if I go burn, then it switches to burn, and then I can start darkening. So it can accelerate those kinds of things as well. If you're a complete, unit at remembering keyboard shortcuts, then maybe this is less useful for you, but I find it very useful in lots of different applications. You can mix and match as well, so it doesn't have to be all Capture One functionality on here. You could have Capture One, you could have Photoshop, you can set up multiple different pages. So you'll see on the configurator here, I could make a further page, assign a button to turn to the next page, and so on. If I tap on this guy, then that's going to switch my profiles like so, and quickly shoot straight away. So let's pop that back over there, just to give the shout out to, let's just bring up Safari for a second, and we want to go to Elgato. This is the company products. It's called the Stream Deck, if you didn't hear that. There are different sizes. My advice is if you think you're going to buy one, go big or go home. There is one with 6 buttons, but you very quickly use all of those up, unfortunately. So I would say if it's something that you're going to really use, then just go for it because you don't save that much money. They do have some with dials on them as well. And what you'll also need to do is go to the marketplace over here, which doesn't want to open for some reason. That's annoying. Elgato Marketplace. Let's try that. And search for your Capture One plugin, and then it will take it here. And it's written by a very smart guy, Emery Dunn, who's based out on the west coast of the US. And all you need to do is just open that or load that profile into the Stream Deck software. And he's always adding new things to it, and it's a super handy, valuable resource. The other one which I also hinted at, let's just make some space on my screen, sorry, is this one, which is made by Logitech. Now Logitech recently acquired, or I say recently, it's probably longer ago, acquired Loupedeck, which is a company in Finland, and I think part of this tech comes from Loupedeck. It's quite an interesting little device, and I saw someone on YouTube mentioned having one, I think. Sampon said it does not work with Capture One. Now, I've had a mixed result with it, which I haven't spent enough time with it, so I'm not willing to say it doesn't work because it may well be operator error in my account. So what I would suggest is that when you load up the Logitech software, let's go back to here. One critical thing, which it should show you a little error up here. Let's go to Capture One. You should be using their shortcut set. So if we go to Capture One, edit keyboard shortcuts, what it does is pre-install their own shortcut set. So you definitely need to make sure you're doing that. But having said that, I have had a few issues with actually getting it to work as I would expect. Now, as I said, I don't know if that's operator error or if that's something else, but yeah. So I need to investigate this a little bit further and then see what's happening. But it does come with this little Bluetooth enabled device, which has a dial here and a zoom control. Whoops, there you go. You can see me zooming in, and a few other bits of functionality as well. As I said, I haven't had it long, so I haven't had a chance to dig into it. But yeah, it's an interesting little device, which also comes into its own for other applications as well. But Stream Deck, if you're going to go for it, I would definitely say go for the bigger one. And it's really helped me take Capture One out of the equation for a second. It's really, I've found, very useful for just other applications, launching apps, doing shortcuts, even on things like Zoom calls and team calls. Having a button to mute yourself is a godsend, rather than having to grab a mouse or pen and click the mute icon or use the shortcut key, which won't work if you're not actually present in the online call at that particular time. So having a device where you can just punch a mute button, turn your camera off or whatever, is actually really useful. Now, to finish this very quickly, this tablet which I'm using, which is from Zense Labs. I think we're a little bit out of focus there. That's better, sorry about that. From Zense Labs. This also has this, similar to the Logitech in that it has this separate wireless device. So does the Zense Labs, and then you can program this to do shortcuts as well. So this can be really useful for things like adding, style brushes, creating new layers, filling layers, inverting layers, all that kind of stuff. And it's just rechargeable, you can see at the top. And I like the fact that it's decoupled from the tablet, because I was never a fan of the Wacom having the shortcut keys down here, because I just didn't find it especially ergonomic. But with this guy, I can sit this kind of, I don't have enough camera to show you, but sit it just alongside the keyboard So again, I've got those buttons. And again, the benefit of this having a screen is that you can control what's on the screen. So it's a bit dusty. Control what's on the screen so it can say, you know, add K100 style, new layer, blah, 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 and so forth, which is way more intuitive than a keyboard, again, where you have to remember the shortcuts. So Stream Deck, Logitech Creative Console, ZenSlab tablet with its separate little dude. I can't remember what it's called specifically, but really nice products, all of them. So as I said, unfortunately not cheap, but nice things never are in that respect. Yeah, the Stream Deck plugin is for Mac OS only. Good point from Ramo over here. And the reason for that is that Emery, who wrote the plugin, uses a bit of Apple script in there to leverage some of those features. So it's written by a third party, but hopefully in the future we can support Emery a bit more. But the reason why it works so nice, and I'm tempted to say potentially better than the Logi Creative Console for Capture One, is because we can leverage Apple script and actually do, you know, a few more complicated commands, like I said. So for example, with the filtering one here, let's just switch to Capture One. With this filtering one here, it can actually read what's going on in Capture One to set up the filters, because these filters can be more extensive. So if I wanted to filter green and 5-star images, I could set that up and have that as a one-click action, as an example. So by having that interaction with the plugin and using Apple script, it actually works really nicely, and the performance is super snappy. So, but yes, Mac only currently. Let's see. Axel says, it wasn't as useful as I'd like it to be out the box, have a fully customized keyboard with layers. Exactly. If you've got other customizable tools, then it's probably less interesting. But if, like me, you're a dunce at remembering shortcuts and you like visual things, then for me, it's yeah, it's a lot easier. If you don't want to buy any of that, then we have another solution for you, which again has been around for quite some years. Whoops. What shortcut did I hit? Oh my God. See, I've got a keyboard shortcut for rotate. Can't remember what it is. But for speed edit, for those of you who are not going to spend on, let's just zoom out a little bit, hardware items, we've got, you know, actually a pretty nice solution as well. Speed edit's been around for ages, but it still has a lack of awareness, I would say. And what speed edit involves is holding down a particular key on your keyboard. Let's go for Q. And you see down here, exposure pops up at the bottom. And now as I drag my cursor key left and right, then I can change the setting. The nice thing about this, it also works on a batch of images. So again, if I hold down Q and drag my cursor key just across Nathan's forehead here, you can see my exposure changing. There's a lot more functions than just exposure. So if we go to keyboard shortcuts, edit keyboard shortcuts, speed edit, you can see all the functionality here, like so. The important thing when you're working on a batch of images is that if they have different values, so see we've got half a stop extra here on the first one. As I drag my cursor to the right, it doesn't equalize all the adjustments. It adds a delta, if you like, to each one. So if we want to brighten everything by the same amount, then it will do so. Whereas copy and apply will give you the same adjustments. Same if we wanted to warm everything up. If I hold down 1, I can make it warmer or colder, like so. And if we had a variety of different images with different white balances, but you just wanted to tweak it a little bit, again, speed edit is a great way to do it. You can also, there's a nice functionality, which I forgot to mention last time, tap spacebar and it takes it back to 0. So 0 is your speed edit reset. So you can work really quickly, you know, just by driving with the keyboard. So you can go to images, you can do your little adjustments, you can use your cursor keys too. So you see as I tap the cursor keys, it's changing the slider. So you can very quickly go through and make like quick exposure changes if you're leveling up like a bunch of wedding images or event images or something like that. So that's way quicker than using sliders, and possibly even quicker than using hardware tools like Loopdeck and so on. Yeah, a couple of other good options too. Toolbox, that's another one. Monogram CC also works really nicely, again because they're leveraging Apple Script, I think. Monogram, which I have one in a drawer I can't reach, is a super cool modular system that kind of snaps together so you can build your own interface. So yeah, Stream Deck, Logitech Creative Console, Toolbox, haven't tried myself, but glad to hear it's working nicely. Yeah, Monogram as well, also a great solution. Nice. Okay. How are we doing for time? Almost there. I think the last thing I wanted to mention is, first of all, check for questions. Let's turn that camera off. Oh yeah, Stream Deck can be used as an app on an Apple iPad with a one-time payment. That's a really good thing, which I forgot to mention. So look here. So if you don't want to buy the equipment, if you look at the products, you can add mobile devices. I think I've actually got the app. This is dangerous, doing something I didn't practice. Let's see. So let's see if I add mobile device. I'm gonna open it and say add computer. So I'm gonna scan this QR code like so and say trust. And let's see if this works or not. Just thinking about it on my phone. But yeah, that was a great tip. Who said that? Matco. Let's see. Add virtual device. Call this my device. Connect. There we go. So now, sorry, let's use the right camera. So I've got my Stream Deck on my phone, like so. So now if I wanted to add a Capture One functionality, let's do, what should we just throw in quickly? Let's just do reset crop, like so. So if we've got a crop on our image, like so, and I tap reset crop, try it free. 1 month. See, look, you guys are making me sign up for a free trial now, which I'm going to forget about. And then pay for it in a bit of time. Oh, hang on, it now wants to do that. 1 second. View other plans, like so. I could have sworn it was completely free. So I might be wrong. Oh, because you've got 6 buttons for free. That's why. So let's go and put crop over. Sorry, it just had a little crash. Wasn't Capture One though. Let's put crop over here. There we go. And let's delete that one. Okay, so now it should work. No, then it lost connection. But you get the idea. So you can, for that slightly clumsy demo, you can use your iPad or mobile device for free for 6 buttons, but then you can upgrade it for have multiple buttons and it looked like 20 to 30 bucks a year, something like that. So if you want to kind of try it out to see if it might actually work, then that could be a good way to do it. Right, let's try this again. So tap to reset crop. You bugger. Oh, there we go, reset, nice. So yeah, it could be a nice little test pad. And if you've got a device like this for mounting your iPad or iPhone, for example, then you could actually have quite a nice little Stream Deck setup going on. So thanks for reminding me of that. I'd completely forgotten about that. And that's a good way to test it out without paying any money. Right. Last questions. Oh yeah, adding metadata. I forgot to tell you guys how to do that. So for creating a metadata preset, all you need to do is go to the metadata tool over here, fill in the kind of metadata you want. So this was shot by Alex Fleming as an example. And then all you need to do is go up here and say save custom preset. And then if you cast your mind back right to the start of the live stream, then we added that preset in the adjustments panel. So if we just dive into import, under here, adjustments, custom presets, metadata, like so. So that saves you a bunch of time in for adding it later. To be honest, if you forget to do it on import, you can actually select a bunch of images, go to the metadata tool and apply that preset as well. So that will apply that preset straight away. Let's see, can you add multiple images as layers on Photoshop? Not currently, but it's a great idea. But unfortunately not at the moment. Any plans on adding false color for checking exposure? All of these things, if you want to ask for Capture One functionality, I'll show you where you can go, because we have an official place for that, which is this. captureone.ideas.aha.io, like so, and then that will bring up a whole bunch of stuff that's already been requested. You can vote on things and you can add your own as well. So captureone.ideas.aha.io, like so. So anything like that, feel free to put on that site. Checking other questions. Oh, another tip from a user via Helen, thanks. Slideshow FX has a comprehensive pack for PC and Mac users, which isn't free, which gives you way more options for any Stream Deck. Okay, Stream Deck, Capture One, custom icons. Okay, so there's a few options out there. I think this market's going to grow as well. Stream Deck can be used in conjunction with Keyboard Maestro to assign macros to key, which can simplify lots of things. Don't forget in Stream Deck though, let's go back to my big Stream Deck, that you can also do multi-action stuff. So you can make a multi-action and then you can drag and drop a bunch of different, stuff here, like open an application, do this, do that, and so on. But if you pair that with Keyboard Maestro, which can also chain keyboard shortcuts together, then if you can trigger Keyboard Maestro to do stuff, then that's great as well. So I've probably only scratched the surface with what's possible here, but it works for me, but I'm sure you can go super extensive with it. Right, last question. Yeah, thanks again, Matco, for remembering me about the using your mobile device or iPad as a Stream Deck, because yeah, I think that works pretty great. Yeah, Jack says Elgato has a marketplace, which we had a look at. You can create your own sets of shortcuts. There's a huge amount of potential, definitely. As I said, taking Capture One completely out the equation, I find it useful for all kinds of things. Gustavo, I'm afraid I don't know. How do I add a keyboard shortcut to a script I have? Drop our support line a message and then we'll see if we can help you out. But I'm not an Apple script expert, I'm afraid, so I would be the worst person to ask on that, I'm afraid. Checking over here. Let's see, Helen's answered that one. Which graphic tablets works well with Capture One? Wacom, which I've got as well. Zens Labs I started using because I like this guy being separate, which is nice. And it's also wireless, but as is Wacom, but I just quite like the design and feel of it, and the pen is nice. But Wacom's just brought a new product out as well, which looks interesting, which has kind of more options and other shortcut stuff on Wacom. So yeah, there's lots of choices, but this has worked well for me, and Wacom has also worked well for me in the past. Fantastic. I think that takes us, yep, pretty neatly, 1/2 of the hour, on to the end of the live stream. We do have some new stuff coming up. So if you go to our live stream page, so let's go to support.captureone.com, check out the Learning Hub and check out live streams. So support.captureone.com, easy to remember. Go to live streams and do yourself a favor and hit the follow button. And that means whenever we upload a new article here, you'll get a very brief email saying there's a new article, go ahead and check it out. So coming up March 27th, we've got some editing with Alexander Sowski. He's a great guy based out in Poland. Really flexes the muscles of Capture One's editing. So I would strongly recommend coming along for that if you're interested in editing editorial imagery. So he's going to run through a couple of different images using curves and color balance tool, all kinds of stuff. And does a really nice job of getting to his final result. So support.captureone.com, Learning Hub, live streams. If you Google it, it pops up as well. But yeah, I hope to see you guys on March 27th. Recording of this is currently going out to YouTube, so you can pick that up almost immediately. And I'll send you an email tomorrow reminding you of that too. So if you want to watch it again or you missed some of it, you can do so. Last question from Vazia. Rewind. Does Capture One have a color match function to reference another image? Yes, it does. It's called Match Look, and we had a brief look at it earlier. But if you look on our YouTube channel for the Match Look tutorial, then you'll be able to find that. And yes, it certainly does do that. Great way to finish. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. I hope that mishmash of various different tools was useful. You're welcome to say it isn't in the survey that you're going to get in about an hour's time. But yeah, I hope there was some learning there for you, and take it easy and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye now.